All right. Welcome, everybody. Today we have two guests here from Hemp Homes Canada. We have Kat and Jon. Super
Hello.
delighted to have Kat here in my home studio, which is a nice change. Yeah, I'll just have them introduce themselves and they're going to be telling us all about their work here in Trochu, Alberta. How'd you like to begin?
Sure. Yeah, my full name is Catherine McKernan. I moved outside of Calgary almost 3 years ago. Yeah, it was time for the country life. Needed to spread my wings, but because I was born in the urban places, it's been quite a learning and adjustment and everything like that. And um, I'm trained in herbalism and I've been making medicinal products for quite a number of years. And one of the plants that I've loved the most has been hemp, and hemp in particular, because there's just so many amazing things about it. And I just saw it as a blessing for people and for the planet in many, many ways. And so I just have been meandering down the hemp path for a while. And I had the fortune of growing hemp with a project that was around Calgary a number of years ago called the Hempery, that I'm sure some people that are listening to this call would be familiar with, Luke and Megan. And I know Elena was part of it at a point, and lots of volunteers, and got to learn about what an amazing plant hemp is. But like so many of the best ideas in life, it's that was a bit ahead of its time. And so I've kind of been waiting for the world to catch, the Canadian world anyway, to catch up to how amazing hemp truly is. And had the fortune of working on a few hemp projects and being paid in hemp. And that's where we together constructed a hemp extension on our house and have just been like natural advocates of hemp ever since. And it's, yeah, we'll get it deeper into it during the call, but it's something that needs to be shared. I've seen how grassroots the industry really is, how much help it needs. And I finally realized, okay, maybe we're the ones that can make a difference with it too. And so, uh, yeah, the story will continue on from there. I'll let John speak for a bit. It's kind of a long story.
Hi, I am Jonathan or John, depending on who you speak to. I've had held both names in my life. Um, yeah, everything around hempcrete is it's a game-changing thing for me. It's been a game changer for my life, and I owe it all to Kat. She is the one that introduced me to hempcrete very early on, and us knowing each other, and we went on an adventure all the way to BC and worked on this really beautiful house up in the mountainside in Falkland. And these people were hemp advocates, and just to get your hands dirty, especially in a climate where lots of people over the last few years have been very afraid of their houses burning down, like literally. And I think that's a tragedy that people have to live in homes that they think are going to potentially not be there in days or weeks or months or whatever. And we hold a solution just in hempcrete. And that's only one thing of many, many things. And so, like I said, it's been kind of a game changer in my world. I remember Kat asking me quite early on because I've been through a health journey and all kinds of stuff over the last couple of years. But she was like, "What do you think you're going to do?" Because I came from a corporate background. I came from like a Calgary corporate oil and gas background. It was a fun enough job, paid me well, and I got all the benefits of that life. But it was also soul crushing and was not creative at all and was not fulfilling me in any way. And so when Kat asked me that question, I was like, I think I want to dedicate my life to hempcrete. I think it's like that is how valuable it is. I think if more of us do that, then this really takes off. And it's what's the what that one's quote where it's I don't know if hemp can change the world, but it's the only thing that can. I believe in that.
Yeah, I don't know if hemp will change the world, but it's the only thing that can. And that was from Jack Herer, who was a huge hemp advocate for decades in the US, who worked through all those years of trying to get it legalized. And the US only legalized it recently, and Canada's been legalized for hemp growing since 1998. But there's been very rocky development of the industry. And as much as people see all the potential, there's all kinds of reasons that it just has not taken off to the extent that it could and should. And so we've been like diving into those reasons and understanding why that is, and how we can take it from there. And so yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
and you guys went straight to it. So John, right now you're inside of the Hemple,
I am.
right?
Yeah,
Which you guys, that was the first structure that you built on your own property. It's an addition onto the house. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that process and when you did that, because it was 3 years ago.
2 years ago
2 years
now.
ago.
Yeah. Sure. We can, yeah. Like John was saying, we worked on a project in Falkland, BC, helping out a few friends who were leads on a hemp build. And instead of taking money, we got paid in hemp hurd. And hemp hurd is the inner core of the hemp plant, and it's very much like wood. And so, yeah, we were given all this hemp herd, and it was enough to make a shed and 144 square foot extension on our house. And so, yeah, it is, hemp taught me how forgiving it is and how accessible it is, and how, if you're willing to put the work in, it really is a very doable thing. And it's such a liberating, incredible thing to know that one of our basic human needs, as that amazing conference we went to is called, or one of our basic human needs of housing, is something that's actually it's within our reach. Like, we live in this world where in the average cost of a house in Canada today is $724,000. I don't know how much money you've made lately. I know it's a personal question, but I know that's pretty much a lifetime of work for many, many people. And I'm such a justice warrior in my own way, and I just never made peace with the fact that most people were going to be working their entire lives to literally put a roof over their heads. And not only that, we started to learn that just like everything else, that I call it the dollar store society, where it's like all of the quality of our items have degraded over time, and our housing, the price has not degraded at all, but the quality has degraded a whole bunch. And so just working on the hemp crate extension just brought back this whole, like, I just felt like, man, this is how the pioneers must have felt. Like, freak, we can freaking do this. Who cares if people think it's beautiful or what? It's like just proving to oneself that you're capable, because that was kind of the impetus of the project for me. But I'll let you speak on that, John.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like that. That's what capitalism is. How do you make more money and destroy quality at the same time? So I think that what we're doing, and hemp lead the way. This is the hemp gospel. That uh, it's obvious why it's not a thing. It's because it's been suppressed for so long and way beyond our lifetimes. And honestly, there's not many people alive right now, or if any, that would have been here when it originally got suppressed. And it was because it's too much of a disruptor. It's too decentralized. It's too for the people. It's too, it serves many basic human needs all at once. And because of that, lobbyists went against it from various, what we would now call big pharma and big ag and big all those things. But so yeah, so hemp is the disruptor. It's the force that's again necessary for us to make a little bit of a change in this planet right now, which we all, I think, really desire and want. And it's right here. That's how cool it is. It's like these are all like what makes up hempcrete. And it's like ancient and simple and grows all over the world. Well, I don't know if lime grows, but at least it's available all over the world. You have hemp, the second fastest biomass, growing biomass in the world, Bamboo is number one, but bamboo only grows in temperate or rainforest type situations, which in Alberta we are definitely not that. Um, but hemp, cannabis grows over the entire world. Cannabis sativa is the same plant that we cultivate for THC and through all of our, recreational, and I put that in quotes because that comes from the government, which tells you it's full of shit. But yeah, the medicinal component of it, which would be the THC and the smoking and using that for medicinal, and then the other side of cannabis sativa is hemp grown for industrial reasons, fiber primarily, right? So there's the bast fiber, which makes all kinds of fabrics and ropes and shirts and all that kind of thing. And then there's the herd, which is the vast majority of that biomass, and it does not have a lot of uses, especially in this like modern era market. People use it for animal bedding, which that's a very niche market because it's a very expensive thing. It does a very great job at it, but there's no real market. So we could be making homes out of them where we literally need to use like, thousands and thousands of pounds of hemp hurd to create a home. Which once that is for a 1,500 square foot home, it only requires 3 acres of hemp to grow. That is in one season to have enough biomass to create that home. And 1,500 acres is or 1,500 square foot is that's a large home, right? That's a family home. We can have multiple bedrooms, intelligent design through that. And it doesn't need to be that way either. We can scale those homes right down to micro or tiny home size with intelligent design to fit people's lifestyles. And then we can bring many of those together and create, another thing that many people desire is more of a village or community, situation, environment, living environment. And so, we really do have a solution. And when I say we are just like, we're the stewards as we should be as human beings of this concept. God lead the way, hemp lead the way. And we're really just trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah, and you're in the right place to do it. So I've done a number of tours, right, with hemp producers, as Alberta is one of the biggest hemp producers, especially in terms of like the post production, right? Like we send a lot of our fiber away to China for our fabrics, but we do actually have a lot of production here in Alberta. We have some of the biggest facilities where they're gathering all the hemp from the farmers, bringing them to facilities, and then processing them into different grains and thicknesses and whatnot to create products. Sometimes, shipping that raw material out of the country as well. So I think that you're poised in the best province, really in the country, to be doing this kind of work because we're familiar with producing hemp. There's projects all over the province, and it's also woven into First Nations projects as well. So I can see how it's proliferating and I can see how, starting a company like this in this province is a really wise decision. So tell me a little bit about the Hemp Homes Canada facility and where you would be based out of and how you see production.
Okay, well, I'll take a little stab at this for a second. We're hemp, part of the reason we've come to understand, part of the reason that it's, hasn't really, really super taken off in Canada over since 1998. How many years is that? 27 years. 27 years. Yeah, we've had, the chance to grow it legally, but because, well, all of the same reasons that we struggle in all kinds of industries. There's investment, there's subsidies, there's competition with uh, similar industries, and for whatever reason, I mean, I've had the fortune of I have known one of the earliest hemp pioneers in Alberta, who started a company called Hemp Co, and it was a man named Ken Holmes and his wife Mary. Um, she was a brave citizen. She sold her house and invested $100,000. I think the story goes to start Hempco way back in the day, and they became hemp experimenters. And I remember I went to a hemp conference with him once in northern Alberta, and he kind of like was sitting back going like, psh, and this was like only say 7 years ago. And he kind of was not laughing at it, but he was just very unimpressed. And I was like, okay, well, Ken, what are you seeing? He's like, this nothing's changed in all these years. Everyone's talking about the exact same thing. And we're just like caught in this loop, but we're not moving forward. And at the end of the day, like all of these major industries, which keep a lot of the people employed in our society, are driven by multi-billion, trillion-dollar corporations. And, we've done a little bit of digging on some of the hemp companies, but we've, as much as, there's some amazing processing and work being done in Alberta, we've also seen major players have to take a step back. They've gone into receivership. A lot of people know the Lego hemp blocks from Just Biofiber and Airdrie, and they also went into some sort of dormancy or during COVID. There's just been a lot. It's like starting a brand new huge industry like this. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's a necessity towards cooperation, which I don't know if people have lost the spirit of cooperation to some degree, and that's also affected the development of this industry. But yeah, we just like we are like we're just trying to steward relationships more than anything. We're not financial people, we're not engineers, we're not builders, we're not hemp farmers. But we realize that there's all these skilled people in Alberta with all these different resources, but there isn't enough coordination, and one towards like lobbying and another towards just, how can we help everybody win out of this? Because it's thinking about it in terms of like regular industry is just not helpful. Like right now, for example, one of our partners, like we're trying to keep him alive. He's kind of like crossing his fingers. He's put a huge amount of his own resources into making himself a processor. And he doesn't have Big Ag backing him. He doesn't have, you know, huge backers. And so, he really truly depends on people like us also being successful to move the product along. So it's truly an endeavor of pioneers and risk takers at this point. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think for us right now, Hemp Homes Canada, and Kat and I knew this, and our business partner Tim as well. We have to be organic. We have to be, very much inspired by nature of how to evolve this. And I think what Kat was kind of touching on there was, this everybody's talking about the same thing and nothing's happening. Well, I think that's because people are, in the spirit of hemp, are trying to play this capitalist game again, not because they want to, but because that's what's there. And so in many ways we need to break that structure of how we do business going forward. And I'm very fortunate to have partners like Kat and Tim that are both on the same page in that manner. And so we're doing business different, and we've had that aspect the entire way through. Our original idea and what we were looking forward to doing is bringing prefabricated hempcrete blocks and SIP panels and homes to the market. And so the great thing about prefabricated hempcrete is you don't have to deal with the mess of it. It is a very messy process. It is definitely a project of passion, a labor of love, and guess what? It's a labor intensive. So now you got to go begging. Hopefully it's not begging, but convincing your friends with food and such to come and help you on your dirty project. And it's just a lot of coordination, all these like it because these are niche products and all kinds of stuff, right? And niche knowledge. And so again, passion project or labor of love would be apt. But that's what keeps it from being scalable. That's what keeps engineers and builders afraid of using it because it's not consistent at all. It depends on who's making it, just like the artist. You know what I mean? Like you get 1,000 people in here and there's going to be 1,000 different ways that it's going to come together. Like overall, it's a consistent finish, but I was told one time that, somebody who was very educated in hempcrete could tell when they went on like lunch or when the tamper or whatever, when staff turned around if a volunteer went in because of the inconsistencies within the wall, which again, a homeowner and a builder and an engineer do not want to deal with. So prefabricated, consistent, ICCES approved, which is just like a certification, engineering certification company has gone through and patented this design. So we are partnering with our business partner in to the south. His name is Zach Pop. He's in Wisconsin. He is a father who found hempcrete because his daughter had a respiratory illness and he found black mold in her room. He's a contractor. He ripped into the wall, found out, hey, there's a lot more hidden here than what meets the eye, which is unfortunately the fact for many of us in our homes. And potentially, our runny noses and our sore throats are, coming from the walls. Not to scare anybody here, but maybe it's worth a check. We have a solution at the very least. If you have issues, call us. But Zach, being a good father and dedicated to his craft, was eager to find a solution. And so he found a really, really beautiful design for a prefabricated block. And so that is going to be the engine of how we move forward. We'll move into other prefabricated things. But it's a tongue and groove panel, and it fits between 16-inch on-center framing. So conventional studding, any framer builder they won't have to change anything for us to use it. We're really providing a building material that it would be more considered insulation or a wall replacement. We replace all five components within the wall, so it's less complicated. It's faster to install by a lot. So builders will be happy to use our products because they can move through the product through the process faster and give a better product to the consumer, to the person who's going to call it their forever home, legitimately. Anyways, that is the driver behind it. Originally, what we're going to get into is to conduct that business, that's manufacturing business on our own, right? To bring it into reality. It is not shaping up that we have to be on our own. And again, thank God and thank hemp for leading this way. We actually, out of all the places that we could be, and I can't speak too deeply into this because it's an ongoing, matter, right? And so it needs to be. I don't know the answer, so I can't come on here and tell you what's going on. But um, but we have people that are willing to work with us and make this a real thing, and at a scalable at a scale that would have taken us longer to get to. And so speaking to I think what Kat was mentioning prior to is like we're not in a sense of competition, which is what capitalism is. And this is where the people who were getting into hemp before, even though they were all advocates and hempsters or whatever, they were falling into this competition model, and nobody's going to beat Big Ag and Big Pharma, man. Those guys will eat you alive. So who are we competing with? Each other? That's very ineffective if we're trying to change the world. So we need to work together and through collaboration. And that's what I'm feeling very inspired towards. And I'm seeing it develop around our business and in Trochu and around hemp and hempcrete going forward in Hemp Homes Canada. So I'm very excited to see how this unfolds.
Awesome. So one thing that came up in the beginning there, I wanted to give a shout out to Daryl McElroy because he's actually the fellow that brought hemp back to Canada. So he's a pioneer, or he's like, yeah, pioneer pedigree seed producer. He works with Manitoba Harvest right now. I'm sure he does a lot of other great work, but that's really how I got into hemp personally. Was I was after a strain called Vega. I was doing a dual crop at that time, so I wanted to grow fiber, I wanted to grow seed, I wanted to be able to press oil. And then I was doing some research and development with Manitoba Harvest, and just for my own personal interest, just to say, like, what is this plant, right? This is how I met Kat, was because I was running a healing festival and I was running this thing called the Luna Temple, where it was all the talks that particular year were based on the feminine in some way. And she came and she spoke about cannabis as a plant. So that's really where our friendship started, was through this plant. And then finding Daryl, because I was after this particular seed, he was the guy that I was able to source it from. And then from there was able to, start a friendship with this man and then really hear about the story about how, they brought over the seed on a 747 and, him and 20 of their friends are unloading the plane, and it's just an amazing story. So it's a reminder to shout out to Daryl McElroy for getting it back into Canada. Like, absolutely amazing. Perhaps we can have him on the show in the future. But I'd like to honor him and his work for bringing it back here. And anyways, so through my experimentation with hemp, I did a lot of this sort of stuff. Like I see the hemp oil and I see the rawness of the material, and you both touched on the fact that there's so many uses, right? It's fabrics, it's you can use it for the bedding, and you can press it for oil, and it's medicine, and all of this. So it's amazing that we're fortunate to be enough in a country where, this is legal, we'll say, that we can now grow this plant. Of course, there's regulations and things like that around it, but it's relatively easy. So I'd like to encourage people, if you have the space to grow hemp, to go to the CTLS website and to apply for a license. If you'd like to grow it and you want to do that, it's very easy and it's free. And it's not that way everywhere, especially in the US. I travel to the US a lot. I put hemp in my designs when I can, because it can be great for a windbreak barrier. Of course, we know there's so many uses, but we can also grow our own homes, right? And this is something that you talked about in your materials that you had passed on to me, that you had a phrase about how many days it was from seed to home in 150 days. So maybe you can speak on that sort of model, because I love the grow your own home concept. And this is something that I've touched on with others before in the past. Not only can you do it with hemp, but you could also do it with sunflower. But this concept of making affordable housing accessible for all, I love that. So if you'd like to go into that.
Sure. Well, yeah, there's a beautiful house, a historic national monument in Japan that's made all of hempcrete, and it's 327 years old. It was built in 1698. And they have many unique uses of hemp in that house beyond what, in here in the modern day we typically recognize as hempcrete. They have the basic style of building that's plant cellulose, lime, and water is used around the world. And hemp is not the only material you can use. If you happen to live in an area with a lot of, say, rice fields, you can use rice cellulose. People could use bamboo. Some people they've told us about, I forget the name of the block, but it's been used in Western Canada, and a lot of people use flax. It's another hard fiber. When the French actually were working on restoring historic buildings, they tested a whole bunch of these materials and discovered, and this was about the early 1980s, and they basically came to the conclusion that hemp was the best one. And it's all the special combination of, like, how much it compresses, how fast it grows, how easy it is to chop up, and the amount, how, like, if you were to use, say, for example, straw, there's not enough cellulose in it, and so it just compresses. As soon as you would put lime and water to it, it would compress. There would be no air pockets, and it would lose one of the best characteristics of hempcrete, which is that with all the air pockets and in the hemp, that becomes a thermal battery. It holds on to heat a lot longer, and so that's why studies suggest anywhere between 50 to 70% of the inputs you need for either heating or cooling. Obviously, for us in Alberta, it's heating. You save 50 to 70% on heating and cooling because of this passive thermal battery that hemp creates, because of just how it all fits together. And so, yeah, going back to that hemp house in Japan, the 327-year-old house. They use hemp ropes in their rafters. They're using the full hemp stalks as almost like rebar. There's some uses of hemp fabric, and I would honestly love to see the hemp industry move more and more into that. We're kind of taking a first step with hempcrete as it is, because it's compliant enough with our building code that engineers here can approve it. And luckily for us here in Alberta, we have a great engineer named Christina Goodwin, who's an envelope engineer and an advocate and champion of hemp, that she is working with us too, to make sure that if someone really wants a hemp project, we can get it completely code compliant, even though it's not in our Alberta or Canadian building code right now. We are working on that on the political front as well. But yeah, in the future, I think like people will just continually create more and more, permutations of hemp that, ways to use it. So I'm sure that didn't answer your question, but
That's okay. I'm sure
it
John
was a
will.
shot.
That's
Yeah,
okay. I'm really happy to hear about that. And one thing you mentioned, yeah, like the flax block, that's something that I had heard is actually even really good for Alberta because it has a higher R value and it's really good for an arid climate. That's just something that I had heard. I'm not, don't quote me on that, but
it was called do something, do block, do I forget what those guys were saying. There was definitely it was, and then there was another one using sawdust as well back in the
yeah.
day.
And then there's
But
mushroom spores as well, like the mushroom blocks.
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, right? Like the fact that we're making our homes out of plastic garbage when we just covered like 12 different natural things that could be used, that could be grown in our own backyards, and could be like freely stored. It's the same thing like when people complain about grocery prices going up and like, vegetables are getting so expensive. It's like, well, have you grown any of your own food? Like, do you know anybody that grows your own food? I'm sure we do. The three of us on here and the people that are listening to this are like, hell yeah, I'm growing my own food because, like, why would, like, one, it's better and two, it's free. Like, thank God for abundance, right? But the seed to home in 150 days, for sure, it's a fascinating aspect, and I think hemp does it really well. And because it's so fast. The processing is the thing that, requires the most energy, but we fortunately have machinery that knows how to do that and do it well. So yeah, I think hemp is an amazing material for this building, challenge that we face because it grows so fast, because of the biomass of it and how available it will be. Again, shelter should be a basic human need. And I just heard this not that long ago that a basic human need, nobody should need for it, or like, pay for it. It should just be there. Like we're all equals. We're all born. We all need shelter. We all need food. We all need water. We all need love. We all die. We need to breathe. These are basic things. These are the things that equal all of us. And so nobody should be worrying about their homes. It's a travesty of this era. And so the more this becomes mainstream, the more that we work on it. And again, it needs to be a decentralized nature. These earthen homes are then literally homegrown. They can be backyard grown or locally or field grown or cultivated by you and your neighbors and just build your own homes. Like these are the inspiring things about community. These are the inspiring things, the hopeful things when people are feeling like powerless against the system. We're like, what are we gonna do when everything collapses? Or if everything collapses, right? Like, who knows what's gonna happen? But what makes me feel comfortable is I can grow my house in my backyard. I can grow my food in my backyard. The water's in my backyard, and the air is all around me. There's an elder in our town that says, as long as we have the elements, we have nothing to fear. And again, I believe in that wholeheartedly. This whole fear thing doesn't work. So how do we get away from that? Well, we start making our own homes, for one. We start growing our own food, right? These are how we suppress that fear. And it's not suppress as in like, oh, I got to talk to a therapist later type of suppress. Like it's like, no, you just make it go away. Fear is not real. Everything is abundant around us. And this is why, I want to work with Hempcrete and hemp going forward is because just in that nature, right? Like it's a very empowering thing. I've never felt more, um, uh, I guess inspired. I don't know. After learning about hemp and speaking about hemp with people, right? People get fired up. It is like, I don't know, if you need that like Prozac or that like boost or whatever, like go talk to people about hemp and just be along your way. I don't know if that answered your question either. Like the earthen builds are they're natural and long lasting, and we have tons of evidence for them. There are many buildings on this planet that still exist after thousands of years that are based on the same concept. Again, as I had mentioned earlier, these things are all things that we can grow hemp in our backyard, water in Canada, and most of the world is abundant everywhere. And lime is also just a naturally occurring I guess mineral. I don't know exactly what you would call it, but it's worldwide. It's all over. Like everywhere has lime, just like we all have clay and soil. You know what I mean? And this is again like these are the linchpins to the big pharmas and the big eggs and the big all of these guys because like this is completely decentralized. They can't control it, and that's why we know that it's wash, rinse, repeat with those guys, right? Take something that's natural, synthesize it, and then make it complicated and then give it back to the people. Added bonus if you can make people sick at the same time, so they need more stuff from you, right? We're doing the exact opposite. Buy it once, it's healthy. Don't talk to us again, okay? Go make your villages and be happy.
Yeah, so that brings up the idea of, the legislation piece, right? You said Christina Goodwin helped you as well with that building envelope engineer that she is. She's a phenomenal lady. Check her out at Goodwin Designs. Um, so the building code, right? I know in the US, I know a lot of blocks have been tested down there for, fireproofing and all these things. They're way ahead of us in terms of having the hemp block being mass produced as well as buildings being passed to code. They're definitely ahead of Canada with that. So where is Canada with that? Are you both aware?
Somewhat, yeah. Well, we can't speak so like closely to Canada, but in Canada we are allowed to modify the provincial building code. And so obviously approaching things on a provincial level is a little more friendly than trying to email at the time when we were building was email Justin Trudeau and ask permission. Like, okay, I think I have a better chance of like flying to Mars or like, you know what I mean? And so we can go to the province, but it's really interesting. I think it's like we have a lovely and wonderful friend who has used the political system to try to make the world a better place. And I think that's a very brave stance to take because everyone is so jaded by everything political, and it's so easy to feel defeated by the corruption and the all the isms of politics. But Helen Holder, she is president of the constituency board for the Minister of Agriculture, R.J. Segerson, in from the UCP party, and we're gonna get a chance to present to his board coming up here soon. We've There's been emails sent to all of the relevant figures, the Minister Infrastructure. There's the Mr. Ray Strom, who is gosh, what is Ray Strom? He is one of the high executives in UCP in infrastructure development. Danielle Smith, we've brought it to at town halls when she traveled across Alberta this summer. So and we've talked to our MLE, Nathan Cooper. Um, and I think a lot of us find that, it's a very long process and no one can say yes, no one can say no. Everyone has to pass it on to the next person. And so hopefully that won't be the story for long. Hopefully we'll like drum up enough support. We did, the UCP has become a huge grassroots movement ever since basically Take Back Alberta took Jason Kenney out of power and replaced the leadership with Danielle Smith. And so there's a huge, like, there was just like this blossoming of grassroots participation in politics, which the old guard of politics had never seen. And so there's a lot of Albertans working on passing resolutions. And this year that we submitted hempcrete as a resolution to be passed into the Alberta Building Code, there was over 900 resolutions submitted to pass into law, and they can only do 30 in a year. And so we got into the top 100, and but I quickly realized after being on a few political calls that, oh my gosh, like this requires so much more education. People have no idea what this is. They think like you could get high by sitting in your house with a hempcrete wall, like just silly, like it's half jokes, but also a lot of ignorance too, where they're like, oh, this is just, how do I know this isn't asbestos or, you know? And so, yeah, it's like an education campaign and, there's just a lot of moving parts to make this a reality. And yeah, I mean, when we did our extension, we just did it. We ended up paying the permit to the town, but I was willing to stand for that and just be like, you know what? No, we're allowed to fulfill a basic human need. And thankfully, there's some libertarian spirit where we are, and that was possible. But we really want to be able to do it for any Albertan that would want to use it and be able to go to any contractor in anywhere and say, hey, like, and instead of using drywall and insulation, do you want to use hempcrete? It's all Alberta grown and it supports our farmers. It's natural. Your house will never mold. Like it's soundproof. It's fireproof. Obviously, we can go on and on, but yeah, like when it's passing to the building code, then it becomes this mycelial network of reaching out to all the builders, all the contractors, renovators, all these types of people, and they can work with hempcrete in the same way they use drywall or OSB or vinyl siding or whatever.
So is that with this International Code Council?
Yeah, so the ICC evaluation service, it's an amalgamation of all of the top engineering firms in the US. They amalgamated into this one service not that long ago. I forget what year it was, but they basically are the standard code for any building material to prove testing. And so our American partner down in Wisconsin, he actually is the only hempcrete block in the United States that has done all of that testing and has received that code of evaluation. And so, yeah, it's compliant in all 50 states. And so we have engineers here in Alberta working on compliance equivalency into the Canadian and Alberta code. It should, theoretically be super easy because it's like, okay, well, I mean, how many thousands of engineers in the States already have worked with this material? I mean, even in the UK, there was engineers and architects that were pushing for breathable wall options because this is especially relevant in rainy climates. I mean, it works anywhere in cold, dry climates like ours as well, because, just the savings on heating. But in some places, like the battle with mold is very real. I don't know if you've smelled houses on the east or the west coast, but they're far more prone to mold. And so there was engineers in UK even pushing for this to be fully legalized. And so, yeah, everybody who actually works with the materials knows how awesome it is. It's just the bureaucracies of which, we find ourselves in. They slow our progress a lot. Yeah, we could die
Fortunately,
trying.
fortunately, the bureaucracies are changing. We are, there is a transformation that's occurring, especially in Alberta, and hopefully Alberta will, be a positive promoter of change for many other, uh, I don't even know what provinces, countries, statehoods, civilians, whatever. Doesn't matter, but like, may we be part of a change. And I. I agree. Like, it would be awesome if, the bureaucrats would just get out of the way and, we could just build with this with no issues. But when we've mentioned this basic human needs conference a couple times now. I happened in Didsbury probably about a month ago. It was a very neat event. Dakota Cohen, he's a big name here in Alberta in permaculture and regenerative ranching and all that kind of stuff, and making your own feedstock and just I'd say in general. Kind of like he's like the Canadian Joe Salatin if Joe Salatin was younger now, anyways. His keynote speech for the entire event was uh, one of the best speeches I think I've ever heard, and again, very inspirational. And but one of the part of that is like because he's doing things in a natural, regenerative way. There's no rules for these things. There's only rules for synthetics and like, oh my God, be afraid of this and got to control that and clean that. And you're not allowed to do that. And you can't do this and you can't do that. And oh my God, that kind of stuff. And Dakota Cohen rightfully is like, yeah, no, I don't care. Like my way's better. I'm gonna do it this way. And then when people, complain or show up or somebody knocks on your door, invite them in and say, hey, can I record this conversation with the bureaucrat, which changes things right away. You have a conversation with him. He's actually even converted a couple of them to work for him from the inside, which is great. So you don't know if these people are actually allies that are showing up to your door. If they're not, if they're not allies and they intend on being a bureaucrat and and stifling you and trying to oppress you, the concept was to have a group of observers come together, like-minded individuals. So now it's not a one-on-one, you, the little man, quotations, because that's not true. You're the powerful, image of God in creation in your hands. We are all powerful. But against the authority that wants to tell you what to do. Well, when it's one-on-one, that authority will take that stance, that leverage every single time. When the tables are turned in terms of population and observers, they run with their tail between their legs quite fast, because it's false authority. And so that was kind of when Kat said we didn't get a building permit on this building. No, we paid the town the $30 because we kind of made a few waves in Trochu unintentionally. They were like, "Hey, you should probably just pay the thing, and we'll close the target on our back. Just play the game where it's appropriate." But in terms of like not using a permit to build with, it makes no sense even. It's logical, right? We're not the structural component of a house, right? So what danger do we provide? What do you need to stamp off on? You want to stamp off on our material, which is monolithic, meaning like one homogeneous material through, right? Versus this five different components where water gets trapped and it's all garbage. And at the end of you got to throw it into the trash. And I don't know, if any of you have ever smelt a house fire in Calgary? It's disgusting. It smells like you'll get cancer. Like even just like you're like maybe I should have just died in the fire. It might have been less less harmful than getting cancer throughout my entire body because of these things. But it is it's a better building material and it's non-structural and it makes no sense that we can't use it. It's all natural. It's right here. It's a plant. And so we need to again go back to education, like what Kat was saying, is there's just so much ignorance out there, right? The wacky tobacco, the marijuana, right? The reefer madness, the stoner laziness, like whatever these um, prejudices are against the plant itself. They're all been manufactured. It's like when we hear these things coming back to us, it just tells me how programmed people have been and are, because we just need to educate. And again, that's what inspires me about talking about hemp, is because a lot of people enter these conversations with some type of preconceived notion, and then you just have to have a very open and honest conversation about what this plant can do for us. And people leave with their minds and their hearts changed. And so that's powerful. Um, yeah, I don't know exactly what I'm advocating. Don't get permits and use us anyways. If you're the true Wild West pioneer, then did those guys listen to the government? I hope not. So if you want to make a micro house or a tiny house, if it's on skids, if it's not on a permanent structure, you don't need a building code. So those things are awesome and something that we can do. If you live in a rural area on an acreage, if it's an outbuilding, if your neighbors don't care, if your town council is cool, then you can build with hempcrete. Good job, everybody. Woohoo. But if those are the opposite, if you live in Calgary and it's a machine and they want to shut you down for not doing what's conventional, you're not going to be able to build with hempcrete until we get it approved in the building code.
Or
And
unless you get a stamp from Christina Goodman.
yeah, unless Christina stamps it, which you can because this is the point of the certification, right? So yeah, we can do one-off projects, and people have like there are many hundreds of hempcrete builds all over Canada, and that's how they were conducted. So it's not that we can't do it, it's that we absolutely can do it. It's just how creative do we want to be in that process? But we're trying. Again, we're advocates, and so we're tackling this on literally every front from like your conventional political system all the way to like, grassroots, um, like, education systems. And somewhere along the line, it'll finally be able to be free use, which it should be. It's a plant.
Yeah, and so you touched on something there too, where um, I could see in the future, as you have more of these buildings in the province, do you have a goal in mind in terms of spreading that education? And that's one question. And on top of that as well, maybe touching on the frame of these structures, and if you're working with anybody in terms of the skeleton that the material goes into, or is that fall on the person that is making it, or do you have recommendations for the framing aspect? So those are two different things. So maybe if one of you touches on the education piece and one of you touches on the framing piece, I'll let you choose.
Sure. All right. I guess I could talk a little bit about education. Yeah, there's people out there. There's some like Eighth Fire Innovations. Um there's an awesome uh Indian band from Minnesota called the Lower Sioux Nation, near Minneapolis, and they have taken up hempcrete, and they've over several years have gone from seed to house. So they are cultivating it, processing it, and building with it. And so anytime there is a hemp build, it's an opportunity to show people, and so it's like our one of our plans is to bring up so some of the best there's a few ways to do hemp, and there's the blocks, the prefabricated blocks, which is from our American partner in Wisconsin, and that's really good for new builds, especially. Um, yeah, we can go to a site that's been framed and then assemble the walls in 2 to 3 days. So it's very fast. It's been designed to be a hyper efficient block to install. And so, yeah, that's really great. There's also another technology called the sprayer, this hemp spray technology, and that also comes out of France. There's some American people that have championed its use, and so we're bringing one of those up too. And so we'll be having a workshop on hemp spraying, and that's ideal for making custom size panels, but also for potentially restoring buildings as well. So already standing buildings, you can just spray it right in, because it's actually um, cast in place hemp, which is how a lot of projects are done. It's not very fast, not very efficient. It just gets awkward at a certain point because you have to like lift hemp, to make an 8 foot wall. And by the end, everyone has the trouble of like, okay, stay up there, like, because it's not cured yet. How do you get the like top corners and just silly things that slow down the whole process? And so that's where the hemp sprayer comes in, makes it a lot easier. And so every time there's a project, it's an opportunity for education, people to get their hands dirty. Yeah, and like obviously, anyone that's into hemp loves to talk about it. And so yeah, we're like open to educating. There is programs at Olds College. I don't think they're doing a lot of like practical projects, but I know that people have told me about some of these programs as well. So it's slowly getting out there. I heard some of the content of the program and I'm like, ooh, I was told, like, for example, oh, it doesn't meet code to do this placement if it's past September or whatever, because the cast in place hemp method requires time to cure outside. It's another big advantage of doing the prefab version that we want to do, is that you're not dealing with the elements. Like if you pour a hemp wall, you're waiting 6 weeks for it to be like cured more fully, and that really depends on humidity and wind and temperatures and all these things, right? um and so they were already telling the students there was all these limitations on when you could do it and how you could do it, and really like that does not need to be. And so once again, like I don't know, I'm a critical thinker, and I want to find the solutions to these sorts of problems. And so I think there's a very limited education at this point, and so I think it's up to people like us to talk about it. And every single time someone builds anything with hemp and everyone looks at it, it's like, hey, look at this, it's real, it's hard, it's warm, it's you can have the experiential aspect of being there. But yeah, I mean, for a long time, I mean, I studied herbalism with Wild Rose College, and back when I was a student there in like 2015, thereabouts, 2014, like cannabis was not even a plant that we studied at all. And I know that it came in later, but that came in with the legalization of cannabis. That wasn't with hemp. And in one of the most ancient texts of medicine that's still alive today, it's the compendium of Chinese medicine, the Divine Farmer, and of Chinese medicine. They call hemp to be one of the superior elixirs of immortality. And so it being such a a renowned plant throughout history and throughout cultures. So, like you can travel across the world, everywhere from China to India. They had their bong, their, and then, Zoroastrianism in the Middle East was, they had huge temples of hemp. They say in ancient Greece, the oracle at Delphi was, they filled the whole cave full of full of cannabis smoke. Um, Africa, I mean, South America has all these unique land strains, and Colombia, and obviously Jamaica, and, so you can travel across the world, and all these cultures have this old, deep relationship with this plant. A lot of it naturally is a one-to-one sort of ratio between THC and CBD, and so these strains that we're seeing in dispensaries these days are really overbred for that characteristic, which is, in my opinion, a little unfortunate because nature knows best, I believe. But yeah, the education, I mean, freak, we haven't even been allowed to educate people on it until recently. It is, like I said, it's just, I was kind of blown away that I couldn't study it back then. It wasn't in textbooks and stuff. So you can see why we're coming from such ignorance. So.
Yeah, so shout out to Dion from Eighth Fire Innovations. He is doing a lot of workshops in the province. So check him out if you're looking to be part of a hemp build. He's always looking for people to join him on those workshops. It's a great way to get your hands dirty and start to understand the material and also have fun with a group of people and do potlucky kind of things with some like-minded folks. So yeah, so John, maybe if you want to touch on like the framing aspect of the structure, also adding on here, from what I know, hemp isn't necessarily load bearing or, not something that you want to be using for your roof,
Mm.
right? So just those sorts of considerations in terms of getting the structure built, the framing and those aspects.
Absolutely. Before I jump into that, just one part of the education, we are going to build like a tiny home on wheels. So both it showcases it's real, and two, then we can take it to different areas and venues in Alberta and beyond, and literally engage with people. And there's nothing better than word of mouth. And so if we can, you know, maybe blow a few people's minds, then that does more than we could ever even imagine. So that'll be one of the first projects that we execute when we get the blocks rolling, which hopefully will be within the next like 4 to 6 weeks. But in terms of the framing, of the building. So I guess let's talk about the structural component of hempcrete first. No, it's not structural at all. Just biofiber. That was the Lego block system that Kat was mentioning before that people know in their mind's eye. That insert was so that it would be structurally like self efficient, right? So you just stack them up and not worry about anything. Not the blocks that we are going to do. Hempcrete does not, and so that's the misnomer with concrete. I think a lot of people with concrete are like, oh, it's structural, right? Concrete, you need rebar. And if you're gonna, cross long spans, right, for the whatever tensile, but it's compressively very strong, where hempcrete is not. It does feel like a stone. Like if you were to go punch my wall right now, right behind me, you'd break your hand for sure. Um, but like way better than drywall. However, it's not compressively sound, not to do like all of the rafters and stuff that you said for your roof. But you can use it in the ceiling. So again, think of it more like a wall component. Everything that's in the wall should be hempcrete. That is what we're looking at. So yeah, definitely nothing structural. It doesn't need to be 16-inch on center. That's just the design of our block. You could do like post and beam style as well and fill those in with SIP panels or spray it in. I don't know exactly what's in the building code in terms of like what's your maximum, distance unsupported before you need to have some type of structural support. So that's where, an engineer or an architect would be more useful if you're going to design your own custom build. And we can definitely facilitate that in many different ways. But we are trying to lead off with these building products. And so going to the framing question is anybody can work with any builder they're comfortable with. They need to, from the framing aspect, they need to build 16-inch on center, which is code specific. I think it's 16-inch or I think you can go 18. I don't know what the other one is. It's higher, or maybe even 24. But we are 16-inch on center for our blocks anyways. And so yeah, you can work with any builder. We will have a team of builders that want to work with our product and are experienced with it. And so going back to kind of like that workshop esque type thing. We're going to be prototyping a lot of our own buildings when they first come off. Like, okay, we want to make a round house. Okay, we want to make a modular house. Okay, we want to make a tiny house. Okay, we want to make a tiny little cabin. Okay, you know what I mean? These types of things. We need to experiment. And again, we're going to be doing business in a different way. So we're going to have a couple different arms to our business, of which one we can, apply for R&D grants and really showcase what hempcrete can be, and then get these our own certifications within Canada, so that again, there's no refuting. The bureaucrats cannot refute us anymore because we're like, oh no, we did the testing, we tried to light it on fire, we tried to drown it, we tried to flood it, we tried to do all these things, and lo and behold, it still is amazing. Right, and here's the paperwork and your stamp to guarantee it, and then we can move on from there. But yeah, so we'll be working with a team of framers and builders who want to work with us, but we're always expanding into that. So if anybody on this call is interested in this at all, reach out to us. We can, if you're interested in making, unique builds and you want to work with hempcretes and you think there might be a market for this where you're from, like we'll work with you. You can come over to Trochu. You can work on one of our buildings as we prototype them, and you can take that skill, go back to where you are from, and we can send you the blocks. That's the great thing about these prefabricated blocks. Like they stack on pallets like so nice. We wrap them, we put them in a shipping container, and literally we could ship them across the world. And we've kind of been joking about that, but hopefully we get like a project in like Colombia or somewhere nice for the winter so we can, go on a work vacation. That would be awesome. So we'll be
And
putting that
I
out
was
there.
gonna add to that too, that that if you have your dream house, or there's a lot of really cool books these days where you can look at blueprints, like it's in you can order a blueprint for a really reasonable cost, like $200 of, say, a house that really fits your needs. And yeah, we work with the draftsman and the engineer that can translate that into hempcrete pretty easily. So there's no limitation on the design you come up with.
Yeah. It's very forgiving. It's a very forgiving material, hempcrete, right? Like neither Kat or I are builders. I've never built anything in my entire life. And I am sitting in a room that's standing and
Yeah,
it's
and I mean,
collapsing
I
on me.
love that,
It's
right? Like I
super
come out
good.
and visit these guys, like I don't know, every month and a half. I'm trying to get into that Hempel, just for like the peace, right? It's such a lovely space. You walk in there, it's just really a beautiful container. You've got a nice wood stove in there. You've got skylights, as you can see the windows in the background. Kind of obscure placements and whatnot. It just feels good to be in that room, and it's quiet. It's immediately different than the rest of the house, which is traditionally an older house and regular build, probably better than they are now.
Absolutely.
But you can just feel like the difference when you get inside there, and you can feel the sound deadening immediately. It's so cozy, it's so lovely. And yeah, and this is a nice segue to just let people know that they can find you at hemphomescanada.com, and you can reach out to them as well. And we got your email
Yeah.
here. It's also, what is it? Info at?
Yeah,
Mhm.
info at
Info at
hempcrete.
hemphomescanada.com. So yeah, check out all the contact information is on their website, and reach out to John or Kat if you'd like to get involved.
Yeah, and no, I would like to thanks for touching on that, because I'm pretty sure every guest that has been in that room says the exact same thing. They're just like, it just feels so calm in here. And the truth is you're not getting hit with as many electromagnetic energies. Everything's just there's one friend described it as there's more prana, there's more energy in the room. And so I fell asleep in the broad daylight, like the other day, and I was just like, I was just gone. Like it was just super, super calm. And so, yeah, and we've learned that it's an estimated 50% of buildings in North America have mold in them. And so how many people live in mold? A lot of people. And so, yeah, just having those tweaks and quality really can impact you and I mean, some people are so sensitive now, they almost can't afford to live in a regular environment because their toxic load is built too much. And so, yeah, it's truly like a blessing to many people. And I remember I worked with children with autism, and these parents were telling me that they really noticed, and they were not alternative people. They did not know about alternative health. They didn't care about it that much, but they were telling me how much they noticed when their Wi-Fi was on. When their Wi-Fi was on, how much it affected their son's behavior. He was a nonverbal autistic. And so the dad was a really handy guy, and he was able to wire it in. So they had a switch for their Wi-Fi, and they kept it turned off. And their heart really broke about 2 years after that, when a huge tower was put in right, a couple of doors down from their house. So they had absolutely no choice but to be Wi-Fi all the time. And that is one huge blessing that hemp also gives. It's just that no matter what kind of technology that this world gets honestly polluted with, in my opinion, that we do have refuge still. And there is refuge. Thank God there's places where we're not like this all the time. And but hemp really, gives that sanctuary feeling.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. Really think about your wall becoming a filter of all sorts. It filters the air, it filters the EMFs, it filters, the energy, the prana, it filters the calmness, it filters the sound. It's very acoustic dampening, so it's almost like being in a cave, right? I even saw with the plaster, if you use clay plasters as the finishing, which is typically what people do on the inside, it actually creates like at a microscopic level, it's cleansing the water within the air. That's what the clay is doing. And so like you're always just in, it's like your room is breathing with you. It's pre-breathing your air, kind of like a tree or something like that. You know what I mean? And so it's natural. And so why wouldn't we want to live in something like this, especially when the alternative right now is unfortunately like living in a plastic bag. Like we teach our kids, don't put a plastic bag on your head. Well, most people are living in plastic bag homes, and it's really ridiculous. And I feel for people collectively because we spend, like Kat said at the very beginning, 700 and some $1,000 is the average price home. That's most people. That's a 30-year mortgage. That's like this is now your home pour. You're working your life to pay for a box, and that box is making you sick. And that's just like, what kind of, that's not, I don't know, that's not godly to me. There's many things that we need to fix, this being a fundamental one. And we have the solution again, right in our hands. And hemp leads that way. And now we are just the stewards of that. And we want to collaborate with anybody who wants to make this a reality, right? We are 100% all in. And so is our business partner, Tim. And there are more people who are starting to join in, this movement, even at our local level. And like we're not the only ones. Again, we've mentioned many hempsters on this call already. And these are like in Alberta and in Canada, let alone across North America or France or anywhere. Like if we stand united, we can bring this back. Like, it's a collaboration type thing. And if you're inspired by this, or if any of this blows your mind, or if you have more questions, yeah, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to chat. Again, it's one of my favorite things to do about hemp.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both for this conversation
Thank
and
you.
sharing all your knowledge. And yeah, we got to touch on a lot of stuff. So we'll keep everybody posted. I plan on being back out in the Hempel. You can see pictures of it on our Instagram as well. Some beautiful photos of the Hempel and the inside of it from probably 2024 or 2023 if you want to check those out. And yeah, as the builds come, I'll also be keeping you all posted on that and probably being part of those builds and photo documenting them as well. So yeah,
Thank
bless
you
you
so
guys.
much.
Thank you for
Thanks
the
for
week.
having
Thank you,
us.
Lindsay.
Bye.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Good night, y'all. Good day, y'all.
Good night, good day.